Good morning. The Maryland Public Service Commission will come to order for its administrative meeting for June 15, 2022. Last week, I mentioned the potential for blackouts in a number of regions of the country, including three major markets. Unfortunately, we've seen some of that come to pass earlier this week in Texas, which on Sunday hit its all-time record high peak, and they only had about 10,000 megawatts to spare. While it wasn't a supply issue, there were plenty of problems on the grid, both the wholesale and the retail grid, with transformers and substations going down. And while they did have that 10,000 megawatt safety margin, they have 100 gigawatts in the queue that is lined up to supply renewable power to the state and to the ERCOT system. We can't get that supply online soon enough until we sort out some of these generator interconnection and queue issues that are also plaguing the PJM region. So we'll continue to pay attention to that. But the fact that the market in at least Texas hit a record high doesn't bode well for other markets this summer. We have no personnel announcements, but we do have meeting minutes to approve from our last meeting on June 8th, 2022. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The meeting minutes are approved. Good morning, Mr. Secretary.
Morning, Mr. Chairman. There's one item on today's consent agenda. Item number 1 is an application from Amerimax Communications Corp. DBA Safety Net Wireless for its designation as an eligible telecommunications carrier.
Any questions on this item? Seeing none, I would move that we allow a 30-day period for any party that believes the application should be rejected to file comments and find that the company's designation as an ETC is in the public interest and grant the company such designation pursuant to Title 47 of the United States Code, Section 214 Echo, for the service territory specified in its application 10 days later, unless adverse comments are received by the Commission prior to that date. The vote begins with Commissioner Bubar.
Aye.
Commissioner Linton.
Aye.
Commissioner O'Donnell.
Aye.
And Commissioner Richard.
Aye.
I vote aye. The motion is approved.
Mr. Chairman, item number 2 on the administrative meeting consists of an updated supplier coordination tariff from Baltimore Gas and Electric Company to implement seamless moves.
Good morning, Chairman and Commissioners. David Hoppeck on behalf of staff. On March 25th, 2022, the Baltimore Gas and Electric Company, or BGE, filed updated electricity supplier coordination tariff pages with new tariff language in order to implement seamless moves for retail electric suppliers, as required by the legislature. Working with BGE, staff and BGE proposed and agreed to select changes to BGE's initial tariff filing. These proposed changes are presented in Appendix A in staff's comments. The PC44 Competitive Markets and Customer Choice Working Group submitted a report and reference consensus business plan to implement seamless moves. The proposed tariff language, as revised by staff and BGE, is generally consistent with the reference consensus business plan. Staff has reviewed the BGE tariff filings and processes and recommends that the Commission accept the proposed tariff as revised by staff and BGE and require BGE to file clean copies of its tariff. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hoppeck. Counsel for the utility.
Morning, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. Daniel Herson for BGE. First of all, it's great to be back. This is my first time in 2 years being back in the Heights hearing room, so it's great to see you all. Also, congratulations, Commissioner Bubar. I look forward to appearing many times before you. We have no presentation this morning. I just wanted to thank Mr. Chen for his leadership of the work group. Also, Mr. Hoppeck, Mr. Sproul for working with BGE on changes to the tariff pages. We are in full agreement with all of the recommendations from staff on this matter, and we're available for any questions you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Herson, and thank you for recognizing the work group leader, Joey Chen. He has worked on this issue tirelessly, leading the work group over the past several years. I recall this was the first vote when I assumed this position back in 2018, and obviously the position has winded its way from here to Annapolis, back to here over the years. I'll turn to my colleagues if they have questions. Commissioner O'Donnell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Hoppick, let me start with you. You indicated in the book sheet indicates that staff and BG&E worked out this language. Did you draw any other stakeholders into the discussion on this, OPC or the suppliers? And I see we have a supplier representative here today, so I may ask him.
So we sent the initial tariff filing to supplier participants in Mr. Chen's working group to get some feedback. And then we also made sure to send our comments once they were made sure that they were aware of the comments as well once we were finished.
I see Mr. Green is here with us. He's shaking his head. I'm not sure what that means. Is RISA okay, or the suppliers okay with these changes worked out by staff and BG&E?
I know that Brian Green, I'm here today actually on a different matter for Forefront Power. I was not personally involved in the working groups or in the review of the tariffs. I have individual clients that were, but that's all I can ask. I don't have anything substantive to say.
Anybody else from the supplier community have any input on this? How about OPC? I know you're not bashful. You probably would file if you.
Good morning, Commissioner O'Donnell. Jake Alstead on behalf of the Maryland Office of People's Counsel. We did not file a letter regarding this item. We were a member of the working group that discussed the seamless moves implementation, and we don't have any objections to the tariff provision.
I don't have a problem with it. I noticed the minutia of some of these seamless move terminology and how the sequencing works potentially has an impact on both residential ratepayers and suppliers. And I just wanted to make sure that we're not going to have a problem that this creates, and people weren't kind of letting something slip through the cracks that they should have been paying attention to.
If it puts your mind at ease, we did discuss the issue of seamless moves extensively, and it was actually presented to the commission on a contested basis. I think that might have been what the chairman was referring to earlier. So this is not a new issue. The legislation down in Annapolis.
No, I'm talking about the specific language that was worked out in this filing, this incident filing between BG&E and staff, with no mention of any other parties.
Well, as was represented to the commission, that we did see the tariff changes. We don't have any objection.
Okay, fair enough. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Bubar.
I actually don't have any questions, but I also wanted to recognize the work group. And to your point, Commissioner O'Donnell, just the details that were kind of worked out in terms of all the steps in the process. That probably wasn't easy and took some time, but the work was done in a short period of time, work group. So I just wanted to recognize that was quite impressive as I was reading the record.
I will move that we accept the tariff provisions for filing as revised by staff in its comments dated June 6, 2022, and direct the company to file clean copies of the tariff provisions with an effective date of July 1st, 2022. The vote begins with Commissioner Bubar.
Aye.
Commissioner Linton.
Aye.
Commissioner O'Donnell.
Aye.
And Commissioner Richard.
Aye.
I vote aye. The motion is.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, item number 3 is a request from the Potomac Edison Company for approval of its electric distribution investment surcharge bridge proposal and guidance concerning a recloser supply chain issue.
All right, we'll have OPC joining us as well. We'll start with staff. Mr. Lowe, good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. Christopher Lowe on behalf of staff. On April 28, 2022, Potomac Edison filed with the Commission to request approval of the electric distribution investment surcharge EDIS bridge proposal. In order number 89072, case number 9490, the Commission approved the surcharge to recover costs of reliability improvements regarding distribution automation schemes, reclosers, and underground cable replacement. Currently, the EDIS programs are scheduled to sunset at the end of 2022. To comply with the Commission's directive to align the end of current phase of EDIS program with filing of Potomac Edison's next phase rate case, the company plans to file a rate case in March 2023. In that case, there will be a gap in the EDIS programs for 2023 before the next rate case is resolved. This EDIS bridge proposal will allow the reliability improvements from the current EDIS program to continue uninterrupted without impacting the project cost and project efficiency. Staff has reviewed the 2023 proposed work, cost estimate, and calculation of the surcharges for different customer classes and determined they were correctly calculated. Our proposed changes in 2023 EDIS charge, an average residential customer using 1,000 kilowatt hour will result in an increase in the monthly bill of $0.27. As a related filing, the Thomas Edison also filed a report to the Commission concerning a supply chain issue which has affected the substation recloser replacement program for 2022. On November 24, 2021, the company provided detail of the EDIS programs, including the replacement of 14 reclosers. But the program has been hampered by the supply chain issues that could cause a material delivery delay and also limits to the internal resources that make it unlikely that planned recloser installation could be completed and put it in service by October 1st, 2022. In response to the supply chain issue, the company is proposing 3 sets of options to minimize the impact on the planned recloser installations and still allow Potomac Edison to optimize the 2022 EDIS program. Staff provides an analysis to highlight the cost of trade-offs, rate impact, reliability saving associated with the recloser project under different options. As discussed in staff comments, option 2B will allow the company to transfer the budget dollars not spent on the recloser installation completed in 2022 to the 2022 underground cable replacement project. Staff concludes that option 2B is the most reasonable option as there will be no overall increase in the budget while providing the planned reliability benefits derived from all 3 EDIS programs. Staff recommends that the Commission approve the 1-year extension of the current EDIS program through the end of 2023 and authorize the continuation of the EDIS surcharge recovery into 2023 using the forecasted 2023 EDIS rate shown in Table 3 in this filing. Staff also recommends that the Commission accept the proposed option 2B to transfer the budget dollars not spent on the recloser installation completed in 2022 to the 2022 underground replacement project and allow the company to proceed with the 2023 recloser program implementation as described in this filing. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Lowe. We'll turn to counsel for Office of the People's Counsel.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. Jacob Auslander with the Maryland Office of People's Counsel. We have filed a letter in response to this item, and we oppose the continuation of the EDIS program past the sunset that was originally ordered in case number 9490. We believe that the utilities reliability performance is currently at the level, it actually exceeds the level for the system-wide indices under COMAR, and we do not believe that there are exigent circumstances that would warrant the continuation of a surcharge tracker mechanism to recover costs associated with a core utility obligation and one that the utility is currently carrying out within the standards set by the Commission in COMAR. So we would ask that the Commission deny the company's request for the EDIS bridge and instead allow the program to sunset at the end of 2022, and then take up the issue of whether the investments that were put into service during the EDIS period were prudently incurred in the company's base rate filing, which I believe they've indicated will be filed in March of next year.
Thank you, Mr. Auslander. We'll next hear from the utility.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. My name is Jeffrey Trout. I'm counsel to the Potomac Edison Company. If you have questions which are beyond my ken, which would be almost anything that involves engineering or numbers, I also have with me today Mr. Don McGettigan, who is our Director of Operations, and Mr. David Bedard, who is our manager of engineering services, and I can call him up depending on what your questions are. The company's position is relatively simple. We agree with staff's analysis and recommendation. And I'd like to take the two matters separately, if I might, and do it in reverse order. The second matter was what to do about the reclosure supply chain issue. And in an effort to move things along, we presented the commission not just with our recommended solution to the problem, which is the same solution that staff is recommending to you, but also a variety of other possible solutions and the costs and impacts of those. And that was so that the commission had all the facts in front of it in one filing. But we strongly believe that doing as much of the recloser work as we can with our own resources this year, and then taking the money that won't get spent and using it to proactively replace more unjacketed and underground cable that is sitting out there waiting to fail is the best solution. And I read the comments of the Office of People's Counsel very carefully, and although they made reference to this request of the company, I do not recall them making a recommendation on this proposal, and so perhaps this aspect is unopposed, and I would ask, or I would give Mr. Auslander the opportunity to clarify that before I go on to the other issue.
Thank you. We actually did, I guess we maybe should move it from a footnote up into the body of the letter, but we don't take a position on the supply chain issue that Mr. Trout was referring to. Although now that we're talking about it, I would point out that, this is the sort of thing that I understand routinely happens with reliability work, that there are changes. There are estimates that the company makes. There are requests that they submit to their material suppliers, and then there are delays associated, probably as a matter of routine course, which is one of the reasons why these sorts of poor utility obligations have been rejected for tracker surcharge mechanisms by the commission in the past, and why we would ask that the commission sunset this one.
Thank you, Mr. Trout. Would you like to move to your next issue?
Certainly. So with respect to continuing the EDIS program for this bridge period while we are awaiting the result of next year's rate case, the program has been a great success. It has contributed materially to the good reliability performance of the company that OPC is attempting to argue is a reason to deny continuation of the program, which seems odd to me. From a practical standpoint, there are significant advantages to having this bridge as opposed to a potentially a one-year interruption. I want to underline, and I underlined it in the filing, this is made completely without prejudice to what the commission decides with respect to EDIS, the future of EDIS next year in the rate case. You will not hear from me or anybody else from Potomac Edison any argument that because you approved the bridge, you have to give us EDIS beyond 2023. That's not what we're asking for. We're asking for continuity if there is going to be an EDIS beyond 2023. And the practical reasons for that, before I get to the regulatory reasons for it, the practical reasons are you need long-term engineering and supply chain planning for these kinds of programs. So an interruption in the program does have a material adverse impact. You have supply chain issues. We've seen that particularly and beyond the ordinary supply chain issues that you would expect with respect to the reclosers this year. So having a gap will create supply chain delays if we do resume the program as a result of the 2023 rate case. And last but not least, we have a good group of suppliers who are performing work for the company with respect to these programs now. And that group of suppliers is among other things helping us substantially to meet our MOU commitment to the commission. And we are concerned that if we don't have work for those suppliers in 2023, they're going to go and do work for other companies and potentially in other fields, and they won't be available to us, or at least not immediately available to us, if we do resume the program after the 2023 rate case. So those are the practical reasons. Now, the regulatory reasons, I continue to be perplexed by the argument of OPC that these types of that these particular programs should be put into should be treated entirely as routine, because they're not routine. Particularly the underground cable replacement is a proactive program designed to prevent failures in the future, as opposed to repairing things that fail after the fact. And with respect to both the reclosers and the distribution automation, we are going beyond our normal programs in all three of these. But by having this type of program, where there is an annual plan submitted in advance, subject to the commission's review, there's an annual true-up of the costs. Customers are paying no less, but no more than the costs of these programs year in, year out. The commission has a tremendous additional amount of potential oversight and visibility and transparency with respect to these programs. The commission has recently noted, with respect to distribution planning generally, a desire for more transparency and more visibility and more potential input. This is exactly the benefit, and Commissioner O'Donnell and Commissioner Richard will remember me making exactly the same pitch to you 3 years ago in the rate case where you approved this. I strongly believe that as a regulatory matter, it is advantageous to customers, it's advantageous to the regulators, and it is also advantageous to the company to have these things reviewed on an annual basis the way this program is set up. So I think it is a win-win-win across the board to have this surcharge mechanism and the annual reporting and the annual planning. And I believe continuing it for one more year while we're awaiting the commission's decision on this, the larger decision on the larger future of this EDIS, is nothing but a benefit.
Commissioner O'Donnell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll start with you, Mr. Trout. Would you not agree that should we approve this bridge in this filing, we are not doing a prudency review or approving the recovery of these projects when they're attempted to be moved into rate bases? Would you agree with that? That happens with the rate case.
100%.
Okay, thank you. I'm certain that's the case. I want to ask the OPC the same question because, Mr. Auslander, you referenced that you wanted the EDIS projects to be given to disallow this bridge and to get the projects completed under EDIS prudency reviewed in the next rate case. That's going to happen either way, whether we approve or disapprove. It's not material to this decision, is it?
Well, I just wanted to clarify that even though the prudency review would take place in the company's next rate case, the recovery is happening now.
I understand, but you specifically said the prudency review, and I'm not talking about the recovery. We could disallow the later in the prudency review.
It is technically possible for the commission to disallow the costs in part or in whole for the projects in the EDIS bridge. But I would point out that in the commission's approval of BGE's ERI program, which is another tracker initiative approved by the commission in 2013, at a time when the the reliability performance of the state's electric companies was at a, at such a low level that it created a tumult down in Annapolis and led to legislation that eventually resulted in the RM43 regulations. That initiative was passed on a 3-2 basis, and the comments from the dissenting commissioners in that case pointed out that their own skepticism about whether the possibility of the costs of a reliability investment program being disallowed was more than an illusory mechanism. So I think that OPC remains concerned. We remain skeptical that that provides the same level of protection that the traditional rate making system that has been in place for over a century in this state. We'd also point out that even if even if prudency review did have more teeth, there are other concerns concerning the fact that we're here talking about the projects that the company is making. Mr. Trout made a point that it's advantageous for the commission to spend time and resources to review on an annual basis these projects, and I'm not sure that I agree with that. I think that if we were starting from scratch and we were presented with a way to regulate utilities differently than the way that utilities have been regulated for over a century, then maybe we could have that discussion. But we're really talking about what is supposed to be a very narrow departure from the traditional rate setting regime that remains in place. And we don't see from our perspective why these EDIS projects are warranted as a departure from that traditional rate making.
Well, I wanted to clarify that you weren't suggesting that by making a decision, if we are to make a decision today to approve this, if we happen to go in that direction, that we're not prejudging the prudency of any of these projects by that action. And it almost seemed that you were suggesting that, and we're not. I want to make that clear.
No, and I attempted, although maybe I did not succeed in making that point in our comments. We actually did not object to the company booking the return on and of the capital costs associated with the EDIS projects as a regulatory asset, pending the prudency review that would take place in the company's next base rate filing.
I appreciate you clarifying that for me, and I will just say this: I was in Annapolis when we had the reliability tumult, if you will, that you allude to, and it was not a pretty time. It was not a pretty time for reliability in Montgomery County, in other parts of the state, but I can tell you that the results of what we have performed under these trackers has clearly improved reliability for the consumers in the state, clearly. Every single service territory in the state, and that's undeniable.
I would disagree. I think that the reliability performance has occurred outside of tracker. That's outside of the
well, the legislature disagrees with you because that's why the legislature said go forth.
But just to be clear, most of the utilities reliability spending is not within these tracker mechanism programs. They're within the utilities' normal core utility obligations, and that they cover.
I get that, Mr. Oslander. You're hearing from a fellow who strongly believes that the obligation as a matter of the monopoly franchise is on the utility to provide safe and reliable service, period. But the advanced recovery in some of these mechanisms, in both gas and electric, has undoubtedly had an impact to improve reliability and safety, undoubtedly.
I would not disagree that it's had an impact, but it would not be, for example, there's the PEPCO tracker that was approved in 2013 had sunset after 3 years. BG's, I believe, sunset after 5. And so if what you were, and those programs, undoubtedly had an impact on the company's reliability performance. But to suggest that the other work and the by far the larger amount of work that the utilities do as part of their reliability spending each year and that they file their annual reliability performance to report the performance of, that those costs are recovered in their base rates, not in a tracker mechanism.
I don't disagree with that. I'm just saying that this incentive at advanced recovery is a valid incentive. The burden is not lifted off the utility to provide safe and reliable service, full stop.
That's correct, and we just believe that that obligation remains with them regardless of whether a tracker mechanism is in place.
And I will further, without belaboring this, Mr. Chairman, go on to say that this commission has, on multiple occasions, forced utilities of various services, to continue their normal core obligation, without trackers. We have. I'm not supporting that today in this instance. I happen to disagree with you on this, and I agree with staff, but we don't take this stuff lightly, I guess is my point. So, and I know you're not suggesting we do. Thank you.
Commissioner Richard.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Trout, I just have a couple questions for you. I completely agree with Commissioner O'Donnell. Obviously, reliability is extremely important, and for that reason, we had the whole rulemaking 43, and those standards were set. To the point that OPC is making, at this stage, your company is exceeding those standards. So would you continue the program without the tracker? I mean, does the company feel it's so important to meet those standards in the future that you would discontinue the program? Because you said that you felt that we were going to lose all this talent and all this these resources if we were to not do the bridge today.
We'd have to give that very serious consideration. If we continued the program, the costs of the program would be fully integrated into base rates going forward. So instead of paying a surcharge, customers would be paying an additional revenue requirement in base rates. So I see that from a monetary standpoint as a distinction with almost no difference. The almost comes from the fact that with the tracker mechanism, there's an annual reconciliation. So as I said, it's more precise than just throwing a number into base rates and then managing your programs to try to hit that number exactly every year. If you have a tracker, customers pay no less, but also no more than what you actually expend. And then the other benefit, as I alluded to earlier, perhaps a little long-windedly, was the additional transparency, the additional visibility to the commission, to the Office of the People's Counsel and staff, and any other parties that care to look, that comes from us making filing an annual plan with the commission beforehand, and then a true up at the end of each year. So either way, if we did it either way, we would be charging the same costs. Customers would be paying the same amounts. What you get from having these mechanisms, now, when we originally set this up, these were new incremental programs, so we had to do it the way we did. Your question is, as I take it, now that they're existing programs, we know how much they cost, we know what they contribute, could you just turn them into part of your base rate case? The answer is theoretically yes, but I think the benefit that you get from keeping them as a tracker, to use Mr. Auslander's term, is such that it's worth doing. And it also gives the company the flexibility to propose something new next year. I don't think it would be any surprise to the commission if, when we file a rate case in March, you saw the underground cable program and the recloser program again in there. It's entirely possible that we will have another new program that we would add, or potentially even more than one new programs that we would add, and those would be new programs. So again, you would need to create, before you could put those into base rate, you would need to create through this kind of tracker and rider mechanism, a record for what they're going to cost and how they're going to work. I think you have something in place now that works well, without prejudice to the commission deciding the ultimate issue of whether they want trackers or not going forward in the rate case. I think keeping the status quo in place for the duration of the rate case, which in effect means most of 2023, so you might as well do it for all of 2023, is a clear benefit, and I can see no downside that impacts customers, only an upside.
Okay, thank you. Yes, I did support the EDIS program, but to OPC's point, I'm just trying to understand why we need to continue accelerated recovery if at this stage the company is meeting its RM43 requirements. And in the course of next year, when the company comes before the commission, we also have multi-year rate plans, forward-looking opportunities if this type of a program is needed. But again, I don't really feel like you've answered the question of why this particular program continues to need accelerated recovery, especially if the company is not even willing to commit that they would continue it, with or without the bridge.
I'm trying to figure out which piece of that. All right. We think these are good programs.
Okay.
We think they're beneficial programs, and if here's the issue. If the commission ruled now not only that they were going to deny the bridge, but that we shouldn't bring in a tracker, any form of EDIS next year, which is not the question before you, that would make up our minds as to what the future of these programs should be. But that's not what we're asking you to decide. We're just asking you to maintain the status quo for the duration of the rate case.
Okay, well, thank you. Let's stop that there unless anyone else on the bench wants to continue this line of questioning. I did have one other question, just from staff and OPC on this issue of what to do with the expenses going into for the EDIS program. Staff is recommending that we, I read this correctly, extend the EDIS program. Well, that we continue collecting EDIS tracker money into next year, and OPC is saying you're fine with rights to book return on and of the capital assets. Can I just have an understanding of why there's a difference between staff and OPC on that?
For OPC point, I think that Potomac Edison had made two alternative suggestions regarding what the commission might do if the commission does not approve company's bridge proposal. One was to continue to collect the surcharge, to collect a surcharge, though not, I'm assuming not the full amount of the surcharge, but to collect a portion of the surcharge to reflect the return on and of the capital assets installed during 2019 to 2022 until such costs can be reflected for recovery and new distribution rates in conjunction with the 2023 base rate case. The second option that the company had proposed was that if the EDIS surcharge recovery is not permitted, that they be authorized to book into a regulatory asset the return on and of capital assets installed during 2019 to 2022, that the company is unable to collect via the EDIS until such costs and the regulatory asset can be reflected for recovery. recovery in new distribution rates. And that was the option that we supported and that we would recommend that the commission take.
Okay. For the staff position?
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. Mark Riley on behalf of staff. We oppose the OPC's position on making it a regulatory asset. This was established in the prior case. And if you have most of the regulatory assets are for extraordinary items like storm costs, COVID costs. These are not extraordinary programs. And also there's additional carrying costs by transferring them as a regulatory asset because they're going to be earning the new rate of return on the next case.
Okay, and so you would continue into 2023 collecting through the surcharge
Correct.
all the expenses
Yes,
from the first 2 years of the program fees,
at least, yes.
at least. Okay.
That's option two. Our first option is go with the option that they continue the program in 2023 using the forecasted rates with the true up.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Commissioner Bubar.
Thank you. I actually have a similar line of questioning to Commissioner Richards. So, Mr. Child, I wanted to better understand kind of the where you said that there would be disruption in the program and that would be, you know, kind of not good because of supplier or companies not being available to you. But would you really not do the program? And to Commissioner O'Donnell's point, the point of this was to incentivize reliability, and that has been met. Those incentives have worked. And so what would be the difference in saying, well, you know, it's time for not having this continue because the incentives work, but trying to better understand what that means that the company would not do the program, and how would it, you know, you pay for it? Because it just seems like you've made a case that it's been successful and it's been important. So why would you not continue to do the program if you do not have the surcharge available to you?
No, that's a good question, and I to the extent that I seem to be not answering Commissioner Richard on that, that was not my intention, and it's certainly my intention to answer your question. We would have to rethink and replan our rate case, frankly, if we were going to continue the programs past 2022 and put the programs in as base rate reliability programs. As I stand here, I can't tell you what my recommendation to my client is going to be, but I can tell you that I, for one, am persuaded that these are good programs and that they should be continued indefinitely. Frankly, I think you lose, if we did that, I think you lose the transparency and you lose the precision of the annual true up. So I think that would be a loss to the commission. I think that would be a loss to customers. But if that's the only way we could continue the programs, that option is, you are absolutely correct that that option is open to us, and that I, for one, am likely to recommend that we do it. But recognize that there's absolutely no cost savings associated with that, because if you don't collect the cost of this through the surcharge, you collect the costs through the normal revenue requirement. And as I said, you lose the annual true up, you lose the annual plan, the ability to have an annual plan review. And we treat it like every other operational expenditure, which is, we know what our revenue requirement is, we know what our budget is, and we manage the program to that budget as opposed to there actually being a reconciliation at the end of the year and a plan that is transparent and visible to the regulators before the beginning of the year.
Thank you.
Thank you to the parties for this extended discussion today. I found staff's position, represented by Mr. Lowe, most reasonable, and I would move that we approve a one-year extension of the current electric distribution investment surcharge, otherwise known as EDIS, through the end of 2023, and authorize the continuation of the EDIS surcharge recovery into 2023 using the forecasted 2023 EDIS rate shown in Table 3 of staff's comments dated June 1st, 2022, and accept proposed option 2B to allow the company to transfer the budget dollars not spent on recloser installations completed in 2022 to the 2022 underground replacement project and proceed with the 2023 recloser program implementation as described in the filing. The vote begins with Commissioner Bluebart.
I'm going to vote no on this.
Commissioner Linton.
Aye.
Commissioner O'Donnell.
Aye.
And Commissioner Richard.
I'm also going to vote no on this, just to explain. I was in support of VEDAS. I feel like it's come to a conclusion just as we discontinued at some point the yearly tracking mechanisms for BGE and PEPCO. I think at some point we need to return to regular order, particularly when the companies have achieved their reliability standards. I don't think at that point we need to necessarily overspend, until we have a good understanding as to why we're going to approve those programs. So for that reason, I am voting no. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. I vote aye. The motion is approved.
Mr. Chairman, item number 4 consists of revised tariff pages from Southern Maryland Electric Cooperative, Inc., adjusting its base standard offer service rates.
Morning, Ms. McCullough.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. Drew McCall on behalf of staff. On April 29th, 2022, the Southern Maryland Electric Cooperative, or SMECO, filed revised tariff pages to adjust its base standard offer service rates and standard offer service time of use rates, proposing an effective date of July 1st, 2022. SMECO's previous base SOS rate update was filed on November 30th, 2021, with an effective date of February 1st, 2022. By commission order under a settlement agreement governing SMECO's SOS rates, SMECO is required to submit revised SOS rates when the residential class power purchase cost adjustment is more than 5% of the residential class's SOS rate on an absolute value basis for 3 consecutive months, as occurred in February, March, and April 2022. The current filing increases residential rates 4.74% in the summer and 6.72% in the winter. This translates to a bill increase of approximately $4.47 per month in the summer and $6.76 per month in the winter. Much of the increase is due to increased energy and ancillary costs, as well as an increase in the under-recovery of SOS revenue. Energy costs for SMECO are projected to increase by 6.26% between July 2022 and June 2023. The company has been under-recovering SOS revenue since June 2021, the greatest impact occurring in January and February 2022 due to a surge in power costs. Staff recommends the Commission accept the proposed base SOS rates for filing with an effective date of July 1st, 2022. Thank you. Now available for any questions.
Thank you, Mr. McCullough. Thank you for standing in for Mr. Justy, counsel for the utility.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. I'm Mark McDougall on behalf of SMECO. I thought staff did a very nice job in its analysis. I'm here to answer any questions. With me today is Eugene Bradford, SMECO's Vice President of Rates, if there are questions that fall into his area of expertise.
Thank you. Do commissioners have questions? Commissioner O'Donnell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. McDougall, you or your team, if you could give me a sense of where the co-ops reserves are, revenue reserves, and how they're trending. Are they trending up, trending down? And what's the value approximate?
Commissioner O'Donnell, I'm not entirely certain what you mean by revenue reserves. Can you clarify that for me?
Sure. When you came in for the paycheck protection money discussion that we had, the $8 million, we had a discussion about your reserves, your operating reserves, and how much that value was. And I'm trying to figure out, is it going up? Is it going down? Where is it?
Are you speaking to the members' equity portion of our balance sheet?
I'm not familiar with that terminology, Mr. McDougal. I think it was about $20 million when you were in here for the paycheck protection money. Okay.
I would love to answer the question.
Chairman, what I'd like to do, I'd like to hold this matter until I can get the right terminology so that the co-op can answer the question.
Well, maybe Mr. Bradford knows, can cut through it. I don't know.
I invited the team.
No, we don't understand the question.
So you have a cushion, a reserve amount, and you put out your annual report every year.
That's correct.
That's correct. So you do know what it is.
Well, no, I understand that we operate our business to recover our costs. Plus, there is a margin associated with that.
Maybe it's called operating margin. I don't know what the right term is, and I don't want to get wrapped around the axle on terminology. But I know we've discussed this before. I know we have. We discussed it as part of that because I and Commissioner Linton were not particularly happy about that filing.
Oh, I remember, but that filing doesn't have anything to do with.
I know it doesn't, but I'm asking you about the same thing that we talked about then. So for the co-op to say, I don't know what you're talking about is perplexing to me, and I'd like to hold this item, Mr. Chairman, until I can get some answers to my questions.
Mr. Chairman, I ask that you do not hold this because the question, however we define the terminology, has nothing to do with SMECO's base SOS rate. Back in, excuse me, November of 2004, the commission approved a settlement which required SMECO to come in and change its base SOS rate and also require and mandated how that was to be done. That's what we've done. And we have simply followed the commission's order in this regard. And we believe that we're asking the commission's approval of it.
Mr. Chairman, I'm trying to ascertain the financial health of the company. This is a SOS rate change, and I want to know what the co-op direction is regarding its treasury.
Well, I can tell you, Commissioner O'Donnell, that SMECO is in good financial health.
That's not good enough. I want to know some numbers, some approximate numbers, and you're evading me from getting there.
Well, I'm not trying to evade you, Commissioner. If you're asking for specific numbers, I did not come prepared to talk about.
And that's why I'm asking for a delay.
About the commission's income statement and balance sheets. I've come here to discuss the filing, which is mandated by the commission's order.
The commission is mandated to ascertain the health of its utilities, including the co-op, and that's what I'm trying to do.
Mr. McDougal, would Mr. Bradford be in a position to provide a sort of an overall picture with respect to the SMECO's current financial status? Mr. Bradford, perhaps you could allay some of the concerns and request for an update from Commissioner O'Donnell.
Good morning, Commissioners. Eugene Bradford for SMECO. I'm in charge of rates and energy procurement. I'm not in charge of the financial statements or the utilities reporting and those matters. I really don't have much information on what our current levels on the financial statements are as far as equity level and cash. I'm afraid I don't have any information to help out with those questions.
Mr. Chairman, I'm not prepared to vote on this today, but if it goes forward, I will vote no. But if I get the information I want to get, I may not vote no. And I live in the service territory. And when you raised the rates in February, I got lit up and accused of not doing my due diligence. And I explained why, and I know that we gotta maintain the health of the co-op. Well, for me not to get some basic information with regard to the health of the co-op, and it looks like I'm not doing my due diligence living in that service territory, I'm gonna get lit up again. And I don't particularly care to do that.
Commissioner O'Donnell, we will do everything we can to keep you from, as you say, getting lit up.
I don't think you can control it, Mr. McDougal. I spent 21 and a half years in the legislature representing that area, and a lot of people know me, and they know what I do now.
Mr. McDougal, would it be possible to provide Commissioner O'Donnell, either publicly and formally or offline, briefing with respect to the financial health of your co-op?
We certainly can. I can contact the financial people at the company. We can either contact Commissioner O'Donnell by telephone, or we can file information or provide him information regarding the health of the cooperative post haste.
Commissioner O'Donnell, would that be amenable?
Well, what I'd like, Mr. Chairman, is to have that information before I make an informed decision on this matter, and I think that that's only prudent. Let me ask staff this. What would a 1 week delay do to this filing?
Well, there is no meeting next week. There's no hearing.
So what would a 2 week delay do?
Well, the rates are effective July 1st. I don't know if the cooperative would need more time than that to get the rates in effect. Usually the utilities ask us for at least a week before they're putting rates.
Yeah, it's not unusual for us to approve rates ex post facto.
Yeah, I can't speak to that. You know, these are SOS rates. It is a pass-through cost. They're, you know,
and we are trying to get our rates into effect at the beginning of the month, so we are able to get all of the billing cycles built in the entire month.
That may only increase the under recovery if the rates are not approved.
I'm going to expect a full accounting.
We will provide whatever you need, Commissioner O'Donnell. Like I say, I will contact the people who can answer all the questions you have from a financial standpoint.
Yeah, just go back and review the tape from the Paycheck Protection Talk, and you'll see exactly what I'm talking about.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you, council. Thank you, staff. At this point, I will call a vote on a motion to accept the tariff pages for filing with an effective date of July 1st, 2022. The vote begins with Commissioner Blumer.
Aye.
Commissioner Linton.
Aye.
Commissioner O'Donnell.
Reservation, Mr. Chairman. Aye.
Commissioner Richard. Aye. I vote aye. The motion is approved. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, item number 5 is a request from the Potomac Edison Company for project alterations pursuant to order number 89664 and case number 9619 for its Urbana Energy Storage Pilot Project.
Thank you. Mr. Wilson, good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. DeAndre Wilson here on behalf of staff. On May 9th, 2022, PE filed a request for a project alteration to its previously approved Urbana Energy Storage Pilot Project in order to relocate the project from the Urbana Park and Ride to the Park and Ride located in Myersville. After receiving notification from the Maryland Department of Transportation State Highway Administration that they will be withdrawing their approval for the installation of the Urbana charging station. The Maryland Department of Transportation State Highway Administration withdrew its approval after determining that the Urbana Park and Ride location was originally funded by the Federal Highway Administration and therefore pursuant to Title 23 U.S. Code 111, states are prohibited from permitting automotive service stations or other commercial establishment activities within the Federal Highway Administration's right-of-way, nor does it allow the collection of fees outside of very limited sales items. After lengthy discussions, PE and MDOT State Highway Administration determined that the Myersville location would be a good alternative because it is not federally funded and the charging station and battery can be installed using substantially the same engineering and materials. PE has stated that there will be an increase in the overall project cost, primarily due to the increased cost of labor and materials. The increase is estimated at approximately $454,000 above the company's previously reported estimates. These increased costs include the cost of materials such as the cost of concrete, fuel, conduit, and conductors, as well as the cost of the rental of equipment, which are estimated at approximately $270,000. Other costs include an additional $24,000 for a professional civil engineering design package for the Myersville location, and $106,000 for the cost of overhead allocated to the project. As a result of the increased estimate, PE, or Potomac Edison, has updated the total cost over the life of the project to approximately $3,236,000 and has reported a minimal decrease to its benefit cost ratio from 0.19 to 0.16. The company is also requesting an extension of the project operational start date from August 31st of 2022 to October 31st of 2022 because of the unanticipated delay. In conclusion, staff believes that PE's request is reasonable due to this unanticipated withdrawal of approval by the Maryland Department of Transportation State Highway Administration, and still believes the project can serve as a benefit to the state, even though the relocation of the project reflects an increase in capital costs and a minimal decrease to its benefit cost ratio. Staff would like to point out that OPC has filed comments in response to PE's request. As a recommendation pursuant to Title 7, 261-216 H62, staff recommends the commission approve PE's request to relocate its energy storage project from the Urbana Park and Ride to the Myersville Park and Ride location because of these unanticipated development delays, and to approve the company's request to extend its operational start date to October 31st of 2022.
Thank you, Mr. Wilson. Do we have the Maryland Department of Transportation or State Highway Administration with us today? Office of People's Counsel.
Morning, Chairman and Commissioners. William Fields for the Office of People's Counsel. We filed a letter. While OPC certainly acknowledges and supports the benefit of the pilot program for battery storage projects throughout the state, for this particular project, we had concerns about the cost effectiveness of it originally, and recommended that that this project not go forward with the others. As you just heard, what's happened is that the project has run into difficulties and the costs have gone up, and that's decreased the cost benefit ratio. So we maintain our position that this project should not go forward with the other ones. You know, we have the other projects going forward in the pilot, that this one should not go forward. Having said that, there is an issue here of whether whether it's reached a sort of a point of no return where you would have basically stranded costs, if you want to put it that way, or you would have spent money that you couldn't get back. So, and that's not clear to us. We know the company has given us some numbers that we included in our filing on the spending that's happened on this project, but whether that can be mitigated or not, we don't know. So our recommendation is, if the commission is headed in the direction of potentially denying approval of this project, then our recommendation is to delay that decision and ask the company to go back and see what it can do to mitigate those already spent costs, to see if they really are sunk, or if they can be, if orders can be canceled, or something can be done to mitigate those the costs that they've already incurred. So that's our position, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Fields. Mr. Trout.
Good morning again, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. Jeffrey Trout for Potomac Edison. I understand that this is a difficult issue. Um, The company agrees with staff's analysis and staff's recommendation to answer the question posed by the Office of People's Counsel. We'll back up a step. We were asked last Thursday to provide detailed cost information to enable the Office of People's Counsel to respond to this request. And we turned that request around in just over 24 hours. So last Friday, we gave them a detailed breakdown of what has been spent to date, and the total is included in OPC's filing. I believe in staff's data that staff had attached. No, they wouldn't have attached it because their bug sheet issued before OPC's data request. So the short answer to the question that Mr. Fields just put to you, which is how much of the almost 900,000 that we spent so far can we recoup? The answer is probably very, very little, because most of that represents the cost of the battery. And the battery is custom to this particular function. So we would have to find someone else in the country who was going to attach a battery to the same kind of EV charger that we have in our program. And it would have to be cost effective for them to buy our charger as opposed to having one custom made for them. So we think there's virtually no chance of that actually occurring, but I cannot tell you that it's a zero chance. So that's where the money has gone. It's been to buy, it's to have the battery built. And we had to do that in order to be able to meet the deadline to put it in place. So it's not something we can get out of paying for. In fact, I think we've already paid for it. And it is something that we are very unlikely to be able to mitigate our costs by selling it to somebody else.
Mr. Trout is sitting in a warehouse somewhere right now. Okay, so we'll get scrap value, pennies on the dollar.
Yeah, that would be, I think, your best hope.
Okay. All right, do you have anything else to add?
I do not.
Okay. As you stated at the outset, this was a difficult decision for me way back when. What year was that? 2020, a couple of years ago. Commissioner Herman and I dissented at the time due to the cost-benefit ratio there. It's only gotten worse. I'm disappointed not to see a fellow state agency, State Highway Administration, with us today. I think they bear a lot of blame here. They approved the siting location for the utility, is that right?
They did, yes.
And then they told you that the approval has been rescinded because of this federal law?
That is also correct. I will say that the State Highway Administration did try to work with us to find a way around the issue at Urbana. And then when we mutually concluded that there was just no workaround at all at Urbana, they moved quickly to provide us with assurance that the Myersville alternative was a alternative, and that we weren't going to face the same problem with respect to Myersville. So,
we've known of this prohibition on selling anything but maps and chiclets and vending machine potato chips for a long time. And I've heard from the White House and Secretary Buttigieg of DOT that they're aware of this problem, and they're using all best efforts to get rid of this prohibition on selling anything of value at early funded rest area, which at the time I did not know where Urbana Park and Ride was. Are you aware, did State Highway Administration seek to obtain any type of exemption in light of federal US DOT's change of heart?
I am not aware. If you give me a moment to consult with Mr. Keating.
You consult with Mr. Keating. Mr. Dean may be aware.
I'm not aware of the exact
application to the Urbana circumstances, but the statute itself basically says there will be no exemptions. That the users shall not make modifications.
Thank you, Mr. Dean. That is helpful.
And I am advised by Mr. Keating, who is the head of our EV pilot program, that DOT did press several times back with the Federal Department of Transportation. But once they got a final ruling, that was the final.
Disappointing on so many levels. I honestly do not know how my colleagues are going to be shaking out with respect to this vote today. Although if we do decide to effectively end this unique program, which resulted in the construction of a unique custom battery, we'll have a nearly $1 million abandoned cost issue to deal with. I'll turn to my colleagues. Commissioner Richard.
If I had some of the same concerns, now I did, I was voted in favor of the Urbana project, and I was very interested at the time of the learnings we could possibly get out of this program. I liked the idea very much that it was something that was taking storage pilot and pairing it with the EV pilot. Maybe you can just help me. At this stage, I kind of feel like, you know, falling into the camp of maybe I should have dissented back then. But today, or I guess it would have been a dissent then, would it? So, but it was the concern I have now is so much has happened since just, 2 years ago when this was approved. I mean, there's some pretty exciting things that are happening with Electrify America. They now have over 140 stations that pair fast chargers with storage. EVgo has at least a dozen of these types of projects. And if you go online, there are a number of companies that are promoting this idea of storage with fast charging. And they make the points about how it helps avoid demand charges and how it helps, in areas where that does not have the infrastructure. So with this site, Myersville, which as I read through all the filings, was really not a preferred site. It's just sort of like a second tier site. Would we get any type of learning at this point from this particular project that makes it still a pilot? I mean, does it go beyond what's happening commercially with Electrify America, EVgo, and what a number of other companies are doing?
I believe we would, Commissioner. First of all, I'll quibble a little bit with the characterization of Myersville as a second tier site. It was one that we very seriously considered.
That's really not the core of my question.
No.
Okay.
The core is, do we know enough? Do we have enough experience as a result of what other people have done in other states that we no longer need to do this? And that's a judgment call. My judgment is that there's still a benefit to Maryland to doing this at Maryland at an important commuter location in Maryland. And so, yes, I think it is still worth doing.
Okay, but this is being done again by other companies, or as the chairman pointed out, all the risk now is being borne by the ratepayer. I mean, already $800,000 at least, and it doesn't appear we have anything to show for it. Yet we look around the country, non-cost of service companies are able to do pretty amazing things. So I'm still trying to understand, what is the value here in Maryland of having a cost of service entity move forward with this project now, given the risks that are being borne by the ratepayer?
Well,
what is the argument with the ratepayer? This is why they should pay for this Myersville facility.
I think the benefit of having a utility do it is to see if it is something that we want utilities to be doing going forward. There are going to be gaps, and because of the nature of our service territory, for some time there's going to be gaps in coverage with respect to EV, and therefore with respect to storage associated with EV. And, you know, with our rural mountainous territory that also happens to be on important transportation routes. So if you want to test not just the technology and the pairing of the technology, but how, whether this should be a utility function going forward, I believe you should preserve this pilot, this pilot project.
Okay, again, I would not be able to make this decision today because, well, actually, at this point, I'm going to be voting no. But it just seems like what's happening around the country, around the world. I mean, the idea of pairing storage with these fast chargers, they're being done out in the middle of the desert. They're being done in very, very rural places, even more rural than that part of Maryland. And so again, I just am I'm not convinced that there's anything left to learn about, you know, how what this pilot would do for us at this stage. So it's unfortunate that it's taken this long and this amount of money. And Mr. Chairman, I understand we're going to be having a hearing in, you know, September, maybe not soon enough. But I think this question of, you know, ratepayer liability that might be out there with some of these programs and the amounts of money we're spending to make sure that it's still prudent for us to be looking to cost of service entities for the breadth of these programs is still something, you know, that's in the ratepayer interest. So maybe in September we can continue this discussion.
And you're referring to the September semi-annual EV?
Yeah, let me be clear. The semi-annual EV hearing, because again, I think this is very important to our state that we get this right. But again, sitting here today knowing that $800,000 may be gone is really troubling to me. So with that, I will be voting no today on this.
Commissioner Richard, I'm advised by Mr. Mullenshot, who's the head of our storage pilot program, that he has additional points with respect to your specific concern beyond my inadequate discussion.
Sure. I'm taking a lot of time, but if other commissioners will indulge, yes.
Mr. Mullenshot, if you could be brief, but whatever update you have to provide.
Good morning, Commissioners. Good morning, Commissioner Richard. My name is Brian Mullenshot, so I'm the program manager for Potomac Edison for the energy storage. Just in addition to Mr. Trout's comments, I just wanted to mention, you know, you asked what are the additional learnings, you know, what are the additional benefits to the ratepayers that this might offer? I think it would help to look back at our original filing. You know, the EV pairing is kind of one aspect of the benefit of this. We have, for instance, operationally in Total First Energy, we're setting this up for remote operations the same way we would set up for remote operations for any other type of distribution system asset that storage would be provided for. So from that, if you kind of step back from the EV side for a little bit, there's general energy storage operational benefits that the company is realizing by setting this up, you know, remote operations, so that we could duplicate that for other storage efforts. So if that helps at all to kind of understand, you know, the additional to the energy or to the electric vehicle charging piece of it, that's kind of, you know, some of the blanks that might fill in, if that's helpful.
And I appreciate your being here today and for letting me know that. But again, for me, the fact that it was pairing storage with EV, that was critical why I didn't go the same direction as Commissioner Herman and the chairman in saying, well, it's got a low return value, but there was learning there. Again, now so much has happened that I just don't see that. So, but again, I appreciate you being here today.
Commissioner O'Donnell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Trout, I think you said that State Highway suggested the Myersville site. Am I correct on that?
They did not suggest it. We had a list of several potential sites when we were first framing this. Myersville was one, Urbana was the other. And when it looked like Urbana was going to be unavailable to us, we went back to SHA about Myersville, and they very quickly gave us clearance that no, we wouldn't run into the same problem on Myersville.
did the company consider sites further west? Like on 68 or 70? I know there's some is it Silent Hill, the stops there? Consider those, rest stops.
Good morning, Neil Keating here with Potomac Edison, the program manager for the EV pilot. We did look at a number of sites that MDOT submitted to us out west and also in the east. There were some challenges with some of the locations where these two looked to be the two best. They did submit some locations out of that one.
Last year when we went to Nemacolin, and at the risk of embarrassing the chairman had his leave, and he had some challenges, not necessarily anticipating the strain put on the battery due to the inclines. And it was hot. It was hot last June. 0 degrees. And he had to turn his air conditioning off because there was a dearth of charging opportunities heading west to western Pennsylvania at Nemacolin. So that's why I asked the question. And you have heard me before talk about making sure that we don't just focus on the urbanized parts of the state, but that we look at the rural parts of the state as well for some of these projects and tests. So I'm just thinking there may be a better site than the Walkersville site, and which leads me to my next question. The Urbana site was appealing to me because it was on the northbound side of 270, and it's highly visible from the highway, and it's right there, and everybody knows where it is, and you got a lot of traffic in the afternoon coming by it, and people use it to commute into DC and back out, and just was a good location. I look at this Walkersville site, it's on the southbound side of 70, and it doesn't appear to be visible from the highway. You gotta come off, you gotta get on 17, you gotta go on another side road. It just doesn't seem like it's gonna get the volume of visibility, or the volume traffic and the traffic volume and the visibility. Is that a worry, or do you think you'll get the same kind of usage patterns you did at the Urbana site with this?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think you're right. The visibility from the highway is not what it would be at Urbana. It was certainly a prime location right off the interstate. And the Myersville site, we stopped there yesterday. It's a bit around the corner. You got to turn the road. So I agree with everything you're saying there. For EV drivers, they're using the apps, PlugShare, ChargePoint, to find these locations. I still think they will find this park and ride and these chargers and passing through a needed charge. They will be able to find them. To the casual observer driving by them, they won't be near.
I don't know where this project goes, but what happens if are you going to submit another project if this project is turned down here today? Because you've already lost one supporter, and I don't know where the votes are.
And if I recall, this was a substitute project because, was it Little Orleans
Yes,
went away?
yes. And actually, I did ask that question at the hearing for the approval of Urbana, which was if the commission didn't approve Urbana, should we then go out and try to find, this will now be a fourth attempt. And at the time, it would have been a third attempt. And I don't know that it was voted on, but the direction I remember you giving to Chairman was that this would be it.
That was correct.
Yeah, it's not, unless directed otherwise, it would not be our intention to try a fourth time.
Well, I am not as enamored, Mr. Trout, with this project as I was when I was at the Urbana site, 270. However, a no vote to me is a vote to guarantee that money is wasted. It's already been sunk. It guarantees it. There's no hope for any benefit at all, scant as it may be, if we vote this down today. So I'm not willing to vote to waste that money that's been spent. I'm willing to try to make the best out of a bad situation. So you'll maintain my support, but I don't know if you can get two other votes up here. So I'm just signaling where I'm at.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Bovar.
I think most of my questions have been answered. I was going to ask what would be the impact of delay to respond to OPC's request, but I think you answered what that information would provide. I am kind of aligning with Commissioner O'Donnell. This is an optimum, this location and how it's all playing out, but for the description or the answers you provided in terms of the operational issues that you will be able to understand better for future decision-making, and not walking away from leaving this money on the table to some cause, I would lean towards supporting this, but it's not optimum.
No, not optimum, and I think, as Mr. Field said, sort of, are we at a point of no return here? Noting my dissent in the earlier vote several years ago, I'm going to, at least initially, call a motion on staff's recommendation. We'll see what the votes are there. If that motion fails, we'll try another motion. So this first motion will move towards approving the request of Potomac Edison, as Mr. Wilson described. So I would move that we approve the company's request pursuant to Public Utilities Article, Section 7-2, 1-6, H is in hotel 6, little 2I, to relocate its energy storage project from the Urbana Park and Ride to the Myersville Park and Ride location, and approve the company's request to extend its operational start date to October 31st, 2022. The vote begins with Commissioner Boomer.
Aye.
Commissioner Linton.
Aye.
Commissioner O'Donnell.
Aye.
Commissioner Richard.
No.
I vote no. The motion carries by a vote of 3-2. Congratulations, Mr. Trapp. You're 2 for 2 today.
Thank you. And commissioners, I genuinely appreciate how difficult this issue is. And I'm grateful that the majority of you gave us the benefit of the doubt for this last try. Thank you.
Mr. Trout, we have MAC Group next week. I know a number of commissioners will be driving their electric vehicles, at least 3 of us. I do plan to stop at your Hancock and Friendsville DC fast chargers. I expect them to be in operational order.
That point is very well taken.
We'll be racing.
Oh, please.
It looks like Friendsville is a gravel lot, apparently. So we'll be doing some off-roading to get to the Friendsville location. That's for sure.
Mr. Keating is taking notes.
I'll be paying $5.25 for gas.
Thank you, Mr. Trout, to your team as well, Mr. Molyneux, Mr. Keating as well. Mr. Secretary.
Mr. Chairman, item number 6 consists of revisions from Baltimore Gas and Electric Company to its electric vehicle charging rider.
Mr. McCullough.
Morning again, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. Mr. McCullough on behalf of staff. On May 16th, 2022, the Baltimore Gas and Electric Company filed revisions to its electric vehicle charging rider to include the requirements of its electric vehicle smart charge management, or EVSCM project. The EVSCM project is the result of a successful application the Exelon Joint Utilities submitted to the Department of Energy. The DOE allowance was granted on October 1st, 2020. The Commission approved ratepayer contributions necessary to receive its DOE funding on August 30th, 2021. The EVSCM project implements rebate incentives for residential and commercial customers to encourage EV charging practices that reduce peak demand grid strain. Residential classes may receive a monthly bill credit in exchange for allowing the company or its vendor to control EV charging flows, subject to a customer-determined time at which their vehicle must be fully charged. Commercial fleet customers may receive 3 EV chargers and a monthly credit in exchange for being responsible for the costs of installation and maintenance of EV chargers and for charging on a schedule as determined by working with the company. The Exelon utilities have not yet established specific limits on the number of chargers or the number of participants in the tariff. However, the company has indicated an approximate target of a 50-50 allocation between BGE and the PEHI companies. The The company has also indicated that it will provide marketing materials for the program when they become available. Staff has also made one change to the proposed tariff to limit the amount of chargers a commercial customer may qualify for. The customer already has installed EV chargers. Staff recommends the commission require the company to report relevant program data at semi-annual EV charging pilot progress reports and accept the proposed tariff provisions as provided by staff and require the company to file clean copies of the revised tariff effective date of August 1st, 2022. Thank you. I'm available.
Thank you. We'll return to Mr. Herson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. Daniel Herson for BGE. I also have some new faces I brought with me today. I've got Stephanie Leach right here, who is our principal business analyst in our strategy group. She's been heading up the implementation of our managed charging component of EV Smart program. I also brought two legal interns with me today that I wanted to introduce the commission to because they're going to be assisting our team this summer in making appearances here in hearings. I have Chris Hammond, there. He's a rising 3L at Maryland Carey School of Law, and Dan Buchanan sitting next to him, who's a rising 2L at Vanderbilt Law School. They're going to be helping us out this summer.
Welcome to both of you. I'm sure Mr. Herson will keep you very, very busy.
That's the intent. Thank you. And I also want to thank staff for their thorough analysis, Mr. Justy and then Mr. McCall going in for it as his proxy today. We're in full agreement with staff's recommendations on this matter. We can accept the proposed tariff change. We can accept including in our semi-annual report the program data associated with the managed charging, and we'll also file the clean copies of the revised tariff sheets. Yeah, we look forward to implementing this program. This has been a long time coming. If you recall, the commission approved the program at the end of last year. We got the substantial DOE grant for this program, and now we're at the point where we can make these tariff changes and start recruiting participants for the program. So we're hopeful the commission can approve this tariff change, and we'll be on our way. Thank you.
Thank you. I frankly forgot about this program until it appeared on the docket, and I see Ms. Fleischman-Bronke with us as well, always leading many of the EV efforts. I have no questions. Do commissioners have questions? Seeing none, I would move that we direct the company to report relevant program data in its semi-annual EV charger pilot progress reports, accept the proposed tariff provisions as revised by staff in its comments dated June 6, 2022, and direct BG to file clean copies of its revised tariff pages with an effective date of August 1st, 2022. The vote begins with Commissioner Bluebard.
Aye.
Commissioner Linton.
Aye.
Commissioner O'Donnell.
Aye.
And Commissioner Richard.
Aye.
I vote aye. The motion is approved.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, item number 7 is a request from Forefront Power LLC and 2 of its subsidiaries for a waiver and extension of the operational deadline to begin commercial operations for 2 of its community solar projects, PR24 and PR97.
Thank you. We'll let people exit the room first, and then we'll get started. Ms. McNally, good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. Catherine Moriarty on behalf of staff. By letter filed on.
Moriarty, I am sorry.
They're both correct.
Pre-COVID, yes.
By letter filed on May 25th, 2022, Forefront Power LLC, together with its subsidiaries, FFP MD PR24 and FFP MD PR97, together the applicants, request that the commission grant a waiver and extension of the operational deadline for community solar energy generating systems in COMAR 20.62.03.04C under construction in Prince George's County. The applicants request an additional 9-week extension for the PR24 and PR97 projects. The 2 projects are close to operational, but need more time to accommodate labor shortages and labor scheduling, final wiring, testing and inspections, and approvals. All permitting and construction is complete. Applicants request a waiver of the operational deadline of June 30th, 2022, and an extension of the operational deadline to August 31st, 2022, due to a shortage of qualified electricians and labor needed for the completion of the DC wiring and final electrical scope and necessary inspection and testing. Scheduling the labor needed to finalize these projects has been a challenge for the contractor. Under COMAR 20.62.01.04, the Commission may waive a regulation in Comar Title 20, Subtitle 62, for good cause shown. This is Forefront's second extension request. Forefront's first waiver and extension request was due to supply chain issues. The commission granted Forefront's first waiver and extension request on January 5th, 2022. Forefront estimates to date over $9 million has been invested in the development and partial construction of these projects. Forefront further estimates that it will invest a total of $7 million for the PR24 project and $6.8 million for the PR97 project to reach commercial operation. Absent a second extension, the projects will have to be withdrawn from the BG&E queue, forfeiting significant time and money invested in the development and construction of these projects that will serve up to 660 residential subscribers. Staff has reviewed the filings and concludes that the applicants have met the requirements of Comar 20.67.0104, demonstrating good cause. Staff recommends the commission grant the requested waivers of the operational deadline in Comar and extend the operational deadline from June 30th, 2022 to August 31st, 2022. Staff is available for questions, and thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Moriarty. Council for Forefront Power.
Morning, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. Brian Green, Forefront Power. With me today is Brian Maliszewski from the company. Staff has accurately teed this up. The projects are very close to the finish line, as we indicated in our May 25 letter. And we tried to attach a couple pictures so you could see, at least from high above, that they look physically ready to go, but there is some labor. The company filed because they were experiencing some labor issues from the contractor. The company has continued to plod through in the last 3 or 4 weeks since the filing. There remains work to be done. Primarily, what the company really refers to as some minor cleanup issues at this point. Communication equipment, metering, monitoring, testing, all to ensure functional and safe project for both of the entities. We're happy to answer any questions you may have. We've asked for the extension through August 31st, approximately 2 months. That may be more time than we need, as we say in our letter, but we want to be careful because no offense, but we don't want to have to come back again because of unanticipated labor or delays that are beyond our control. We did ask, as staff indicated, come for an extension that the commission granted in January through June 30th. That was as a result of some supply chain issues. Those issues are behind us, as you can see from the overhead pictures. So happy to answer any questions that the commission may have.
Thank you, Mr. Wade. The photos did speak volumes. Do commissioners have questions? Seeing none, I would move that we grant the waivers requested by the applicants applicable to community solar energy generating system projects PR24 and PR97. The vote begins with Commissioner Buvar.
Aye.
Commissioner Linton.
Aye.
Commissioner O'Donnell.
Aye.
And Commissioner Richard. Aye. I vote aye. The motion is approved. Before we adjourn today, for those staying around for case number 9681, we'll have a pre-hearing conference at 11:45 a.m. this morning on this YouTube channel. Thank you. Today's meeting is adjourned.